The mining drills stopped working 3 days ago. Jake Morrison wiped the sweat from his forehead and stared at the broken equipment scattered around the dig site. He had been fixing machines for 12 years, but he had never seen anything like this. Every tool that touched the black rock deep in the cavern simply died. No power, no response, nothing. Amanda Price climbed down the rocky slope, her boots crunching on loose stones. She carried her scanner in one hand and a sample bag in the other. As the team's lead scientist, she had seen plenty of strange things on different planets, but this place made her skin crawl. Dead as a doorknob, Jake said, kicking at a drill bit that had snapped clean in half. Whatever that thing is down there, it doesn't like our equipment. Amanda looked toward the cave entrance. 3 weeks ago, the mining crew had been digging for rare metals when they broke through into an underground chamber. What they found inside changed everything. The black structure was massive, bigger than any building on Earth. It looked like. It was made from a single piece of stone, but the surface was too smooth, too perfect. Kethvar thinks it's just a rock formation, Amanda said, but her voice showed she didn't believe it. Jake laughed. That blue-skinned know-it-all wouldn't recognize ancient tech if it bit him on his forearms. I've seen enough alien ruins, too. Know when something was built, not grown. Amanda nodded. The Zephyrians were smart, much smarter than humans in many ways. Their technology was hundreds of years ahead of Earth's best science. But they thought in straight lines, always following rules and patterns. Sometimes that made them miss the obvious. Where's Malsoth? Amanda asked, looking around the camp. Still, running those fancy tests with her crystal scanner things. You know how the Altarians are about their equipment? Jake picked up his toolbox and started walking toward the cave. Come on, let's go take another look. Maybe we'll see something they missed. The cave was dark and cold. Their lights created dancing shadows on the walls as they walked deeper underground. The air felt thick, like it was full of electricity before a storm. Amanda's scanner beeped softly, picking up energy readings that made no sense. There, Jake pointed ahead. You can see it now. The structure filled the entire chamber. It was black as midnight, but somehow it seemed to glow with its own light. The surface was covered with marks and symbols that looked almost like writing. But unlike anything Amanda had ever seen, the shapes seemed to move when she wasn't looking directly at them. It's beautiful, she whispered. It's creepy, Jake corrected. Look at the size of it. This thing is older than dirt, and it's been sitting here waiting for someone to find it. Malsoth was kneeling near the base of the structure, her 6 arms working with different instruments. The Altarian looked up when they approached her. Large eyes reflecting their lights. No change in readings, she said in her musical voice. The object contains complex internal mechanisms, but shows no signs of power or activity. It appears to be dormant. Maybe it's broken, Jake suggested. Or maybe it's sleeping, Amanda said quietly. She stepped closer to the structure, feeling drawn to it in a way she couldn't explain. The symbols seemed to pulse gently, like a slow heartbeat. Kethvar emerged from the shadows on the other side of the chamber. The tall Zephyrion moved with quick, precise steps, his forearms carrying various scanning devices. His blue-gray skin looked pale in the artificial light. Have completed my analysis, he announced. This object is clearly a natural formation, possibly created by volcanic activity millions of years ago. The patterns you see are simply mineral deposits following geological stress lines. That's the biggest load of garbage I've ever heard, Jake said bluntly. Kethvar's large eyes narrowed. Your human inability to accept scientific evidence does not change the facts. My people have studied thousands of worlds. We know the difference between natural formations and artificial constructs. Then explain why all our equipment stops working when it gets near this thing, Amanda said. Magnetic interference from the mineral composition, Kethvar replied, without hesitation. It's quite common on planets with high metal content. Amanda looked at the structure again. The symbols definitely looked like writing to her. Not like the mathematical formulas that most alien species used, but more like the flowing script of human languages. She could almost imagine meaning in the curves and lines. I want to touch it, she said suddenly. Everyone stared at her. Malsoth's arms stopped moving. Jake dropped his wrench. That's probably not a good idea, Jake said carefully. We don't know what it is, or what it might do. Absolutely not, Kethvar said firmly. Physical contact with unknown objects is extremely dangerous. People have protocols for situations like this. Your people have protocols for everything, Amanda replied. She was already walking toward the structure. That's why you never discover anything new. The surface of the structure felt warm under her palm, which was impossible. The cave was cold, near freezing, but the black material was warm like skin, and it seemed to pulse with slow, steady rhythm. Amanda pressed her hand flat against one of the larger symbols. I think this is writing, she said softly. It looks like someone was trying to tell a story. The moment the words left her mouth, everything changed. Light exploded from the structure, bright as the sun. The symbols blazed with white fire, and the entire chamber filled with humming energy. Jake, Melsoth, and Kethvar stumbled backward, shielding their eyes, but Amanda felt no fear. The light was warm and welcoming, like coming home after a long journey. She could feel the structure responding to her presence, awakening from a sleep that had lasted for millions of years. Information flowed into her mind, not in words but in pure understanding. She saw images of a great civilization that had ruled the galaxy long ago. She saw their beautiful cities and their incredible technology. She saw their final battle against something terrible that came from beyond the stars. She saw them hiding their most precious secrets in structures like this. Waiting for the right people to find them. The light faded slowly, leaving the chamber in relative darkness. The structure still glowed softly, but now it was clearly active. Displays had appeared on its surface, showing star maps and symbols that Amanda somehow knew were important. What did you do? Kethvar whispered, his voice shaking. Amanda turned. To face the others, she could see the fear in their eyes, but also something else. Wonder. The structure had awakened, and everyone in the chamber could feel its power humming through the air. I think I said hello, Amanda replied. She looked back at the structure, and new displays appeared in response to her attention. And I think it's been waiting a very long time for someone to find it. Jake was the first to recover. He walked slowly toward the structure, his eyes wide with amazement. This is incredible. Look at those displays. That's definitely star charts. And those symbols. They're like nothing I've ever seen. The energy readings are off the scale, Melsoth added, her instruments beeping frantically. This object has more power than our entire fleet, Kethvar said nothing. He was staring at Amanda with an expression she had never seen on a Zephyrian face before. It took her a moment to recognize it as fear. We need to contact the Federation immediately, he said finally. This discovery will change everything. Amanda nodded, but she was barely listening. The structure was still showing her things, teaching. Her things. She could feel its vast intelligence reaching out to her, sharing secrets that had been hidden for millions of years. For the first time in her life, she felt like she was exactly where she belonged. The Federation ship arrived exactly 7 days after Kethvar sent his emergency message. Amanda watched from the observation deck as the massive vessel settled onto the planet's surface, its engines creating dust storms that covered half the mining camp. She had spent the week learning to use the artifact. Every day brought new discoveries. The ancient structure responded to her thoughts, showing her star maps that covered the entire galaxy. It displayed technological blueprints that made Federation science look like children's toys. Most amazing of all, it seemed to recognize her as more than just another curious explorer. They're here, Jake said, joining her at the window. His face showed the same worry that had been growing in Amanda's chest all week. 3 full research teams and enough firepower to level a small moon. Commander Valdris requested the best. Mines in Federation space, Kethvar said from behind them. The Zephyrian had been acting strange since the artifact awakened. He spoke carefully now, like he was afraid of saying something wrong. Surely you understand the importance of proper scientific investigation. Amanda turned to look at him. You mean they don't trust humans to handle this alone? I did not say that. You didn't have to. Amanda watched as figures in environmental suits began unloading equipment from the ship. Even from this distance, she could see they were bringing much more than simple research tools. How many weapons did they pack in there? Jake snorted. Enough to make sure we cooperate, I'm guessing? The camp buzzed with activity as the new arrivals set up their base. Amanda recognized the efficient movements of Valdorian military personnel. They worked in perfect formation, each team member knowing exactly what to do without speaking. It was impressive and scary at the same time. Commander Valdris himself appeared at the research tent 2 hours later. The Valdorian was tall even by his species standards. With the gray-blue skin and large cranium that marked him as one of the intellectual elite, his dark eyes studied Amanda with obvious disappointment. "Dr. Price," he said in perfect English, "I have read your reports with great interest." "Thank you, Commander." Amanda kept her voice neutral. She had dealt with Valdorian superiority before, but never in a situation this important. "However, I must point out several obvious errors in your conclusions." Valdris activated a holographic display that showed the artifact from multiple angles. "You claim this structure is some form of advanced technology, but my preliminary scans suggest a much simpler explanation. Which is a naturally occurring crystalline formation with unusual electromagnetic properties, quite common on planets, with high mineral content, though admittedly this is a particularly large example." Amanda felt her jaw clench. "Commander, I've been working with this artifact for a week. It responds to direct interface, displays complex information systems, and contains databases of astronomical knowledge that span millions of years." "How exactly do you explain that with crystalline formations?" "Confirmation bias," Valdris replied. "Smoothly, humans have a well-documented tendency to see patterns where none exist. Your species' imagination often overrides rational analysis." "Then prove me wrong," Amanda said. "Touch the artifact yourself. See what happens." Valdris smiled, showing the sharp teeth that made all predator species slightly unsettling to humans. "I intend to do exactly that. But first, let me introduce my team." The Valdorian scientists were everything Amanda expected. They carried equipment that hummed with barely contained energy. Their leader, Dr. Nexus Prim, spoke in the mathematical language that high-level Valdorians used for complex concepts. When translated, his words sounded like poetry, but Amanda knew they were actually precise scientific formulas. The probability of primitive human technology successfully interfacing with unknown systems approaches 0. Dr. Nexus Prim explained to his colleagues. Logic suggests that any apparent responses were either coincidental or the result of measurement error. Primitive human technology. Jake stepped forward, his fists clenched. "Lady, we didn't use any technology at all. Amanda just walked up and touched the thing." Dr. Nexus Prime looked at Jake like he was a talking animal. "Physical. Contact with unknown objects is extremely dangerous and scientifically meaningless. Proper analysis requires controlled conditions and appropriate instruments." "Right?" Jake said. "So let's see your appropriate instruments work." The Valdorian team spent 3 hours setting up their equipment around the artifact. Amanda watched, from a safe distance, as they deployed scanners, neural interfaces, and quantum analyzers that probably cost more than her entire research budget. The machines beeped and hummed and displayed readouts that even she couldn't understand, but the artifact remained completely dark. "Curious," Dr. Nexus Prim muttered, adjusting his neural interface headset. The quantum resonance should have triggered at least a basic response pattern. Commander Valdris stepped forward, his own equipment glowing with internal power. Perhaps a more direct approach is required. He placed his hands on the surface of the artifact and closed his eyes, concentrating with the full power of his enhanced Valdorian mind. Nothing happened. Minutes passed. The commander's forehead showed the strain of his effort, but the artifact remained as lifeless as a piece of ordinary stone. Finally, he stepped back, his face showing the first crack in his superior attitude. "Interesting," he said carefully. "The object appears to be in some form of dormant state." "It's not dormant," Amanda said quietly. "Just doesn't recognize you." All eyes turned to her. She walked slowly toward the artifact, feeling the familiar warmth that seemed to emanate from its surface. The moment her hand touched the black material, light blazed throughout the chamber. The Valdorian equipment registered energy levels that made their operators step back in alarm. Holographic displays filled the air around the artifact, showing star charts, technical diagrams, and flowing scripts that looked almost like human writing. The structure hummed with power that made everyone's hair stand on end. Possible. Dr. Nexus Prim whispered. Amanda looked at the information flowing around her. She could understand some of it now after a week of practice. The artifact was showing her things about its creators, about their technology, about the reason they had built these structures and hidden them throughout the galaxy. It's not impossible, she said softly. It's just selective. Commander Valdris approached carefully, his instruments registering power levels that shouldn't exist. How are you doing this? What technology are you using? None, Amanda replied. I think it recognizes something in humans that other species don't have. That is scientifically absurd, Dr. Nexus Prime declared. Humans are among the youngest species in the galaxy. Your technology is primitive. Your understanding of quantum mechanics is elementary. Your neural development is clearly inferior. 2 more evolved races. The artifact's displays flickered in response to his words, and Amanda felt something like anger flowing through the connection. Not her anger, but the artifacts, as if it disagreed with the Valdorian's assessment. Maybe. Age isn't everything, Jake said with a grin. Maybe being young and stupid has its advantages. This requires further study, Commander Valdris announced. Dr. Price, I want you to demonstrate this interface capability for my full research team. We need to understand exactly how this connection functions, and if I refuse, the commander's expression hardened. You are a Federation citizen, Dr. Price. When the High Council requests your cooperation in a matter of galactic security, refusal is not an option. Amanda looked around the chamber. Eldorian guards had appeared at every entrance, their weapons clearly visible. The message was obvious. Fine, she said, but I want my own team present for every test. I want full access to all data. Collect. Agreed, Valdris said, though his tone suggested he had no intention of keeping that promise. As the Valdorians prepared their equipment for more detailed studies, Amanda pressed her hand against the artifact one more time. In her mind, she felt something like encouragement flowing from the ancient structure. Whatever secrets it contained, it wanted her to discover them, but it also wanted her to be careful. The artifact had been waiting for millions of years. Could wait a little longer for the right moment to reveal its true purpose. Amanda just hoped she would recognize that moment when it came. Amanda spent the next 5 days connected to the artifact for hours at a time. Each session revealed more secrets, more impossible truths that changed everything she thought she knew about the galaxy. Eldorians recorded every moment there. Instruments capturing data they couldn't understand, while Amanda dove deeper into the ancient consciousness that lived within the black structure. On the 6th day, she learned the truth about who built it. The vision came without warning. One moment she was studying star charts that showed the galaxy as it existed millions of years ago, and the next she was standing in a city that took her breath away. Buildings reached toward the sky like crystal trees, their surfaces alive with flowing light. People moved through the streets below. Amanda's heart nearly stopped when she saw them. They looked human, not exactly human, but close enough that they could have been her distant cousins. They were taller, their eyes larger, their movements more graceful than anyone she'd ever seen. But their faces, their expressions, the way they interacted with each other, it was all familiar in a way that made her chest ache with recognition. The architect's voice whispered in her mind. It wasn't her own voice, but it felt warm and familiar. Your ancestors, our children. Amanda watched as the vision showed her more of the architect's civilization. They had ruled the galaxy when the current Federation species were still crawling out of their oceans. Their technology made even Valdorian science look primitive. It could move between stars as easily as walking between rooms. It could reshape matter with a thought. They lived for thousands of years and filled their long lives with art and knowledge and the joy of discovery. But something had. It's gone wrong. The vision darkened as Amanda saw the enemy that destroyed the architects. They came from outside the galaxy, from a place between dimensions where life existed only to consume other life. The Void Hunters, the architects called them, creatures of living darkness that fed on consciousness itself. The war lasted for centuries. The architects fought with weapons that could destroy entire star systems, but the Void Hunters just kept coming. For every enemy they destroyed, 10 more appeared. The invaders learned from each battle, adapting their tactics and growing stronger with every victory. In the end, the architects knew they would lose. So we planned for the future, the ancient voice explained. But we've scattered our knowledge across the galaxy. We've seeded chosen worlds with our genetic patterns. We built these markers and hid them where our children would find them when they were ready. Amanda felt tears on her cheeks as she understood. Humans are descended from the architects, not descended. Continuation. We encoded our essence into your DNA spread across 1,000,000 worlds. When the time came, when the Void Hunters returned, our children would inherit our legacy and succeed where we failed. The vision faded, leaving Amanda back in the cold chamber with the Valdorians watching her every move. But now she understood why the artifact responded only to humans. They weren't just lucky, they were the chosen heirs of the galaxy's greatest civilization. Interesting readings, Dr. Nexus Prim announced, studying his displays. Neural activity increased by 300% during the last sequence. What did you experience, Dr. Price? Amanda looked at Commander Valdris and his team of scientists. How could she explain what she had learned? That humans weren't the primitive newcomers everyone assumed. That they carried the genetic legacy of beings who had ruled the galaxy when the Valdorians were still learning to make fire. I saw the builders, she said carefully. The civilization that created this artifact. Excellent, Valdris said. What can you tell us about their technology, their weapons, or methods of faster-than-light travel? They called themselves the architects. They lived millions of years ago, before any of the current Federation species had developed spaceflight. Dr. Nexus Prime made a dismissive sound. Humans and their imagination. No doubt you interpreted random data patterns as historical records. It wasn't random, Amanda said firmly. They showed me their cities, their people, their final war. Final war, Valdris leaned forward, suddenly interested. Against whom? Amanda hesitated. The artifact had shown her so much, but some knowledge felt too dangerous to share. Something from outside the galaxy? They called them the Void Hunters? The chamber fell silent. Even the Valdorians stopped their constant note-taking. You're saying this ancient civilization was destroyed by external forces? Valdris asked slowly.
Yes.
But before they died, they hid their knowledge in artifacts like this one. They also... Amanda paused, knowing her next words would change everything. They also seeded the galaxy with their genetic material. They created successor species too. Inherit their legacy. Which species? Dr. Nexus Prime demanded. Amanda met his gaze steadily. Humans. The reaction was immediate and explosive. Dr. Nexus Prim laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the chamber. Commander Valdris's face showed the kind of disgust usually reserved for particularly unpleasant insects. Several of the other Valdorians began speaking rapidly in their mathematical language, their voices rising with each calculated phrase. Absolutely ridiculous, Valdris declared. Humans are barely evolved primates. Your species has existed in space for less than 4 centuries. The idea that you could be inheritors of advanced technology is scientifically impossible. Then explain why the artifact responds only to me, Amanda said. Coincidence? Or perhaps some unusual electromagnetic signature in human brain chemistry? We will discover the true mechanism and replicate it in more suitable subjects. Jake stepped forward from where he had been listening near the chamber entrance. More suitable subjects? Like yourselves? Obviously, Dr. Nexus Prime replied. Valdorians have been the dominant intellectual force in the galaxy for over 10,000 years. We are the natural inheritors of any advanced technology. Natural, Jake repeated. Right, because you're so much better than everyone else. Facts are not opinions, human. Valdorian neural capacity is demonstrably superior to your primitive brain structure. Our civilization has achievements your species cannot even comprehend. Yet, Amanda said quietly, your superior minds can't make this artifact respond to you. The silence that followed was thick with tension. Amanda could see the frustration building in the Valdorian faces. Their entire worldview was built around their intellectual superiority, and the artifact challenged that in ways they couldn't accept. There must be a way to transfer the interface capability, Valdris said finally. Dr. Price, I want you to attempt a direct neural link with Dr. Nexus Prim while you're connected to the artifact. Perhaps we can copy the necessary brain patterns. That sounds dangerous, Jake objected. All scientific advancement involves risk, Valdris replied coldly. Dr. Price, you will comply. Amanda looked at the artifact, then at the Valdorians surrounding. She could feel something like warning flowing from the ancient structure. The architects had faced the same kind of arrogance in their final days, the belief that superior technology could solve any problem. I'll try, she said. But I don't think it will work the way you expect. Dr. Nexus Prime activated his neural interface and approached Amanda at the artifact. She placed her hand on the surface and felt the familiar warmth flow through her. The holographic displays appeared immediately, filling the chamber with light and information.
"Oh, Valdris,"
commanded Doctor. Nexus Prime pressed his interface against Amanda's temple, and immediately everything went wrong. The artifact's displays flickered and changed, showing images that made Amanda's blood run cold. She saw the Void Hunters again, but closer now, more real. She saw the space between dimensions where they waited, watching, preparing for their return. And she realized they had been monitoring every activation of the artifact, tracking each awakening across the galaxy. "Stop," she gasped, trying to pull away from the neural link. "Something's wrong, they're watching us." But it was too late. The connection between dimensions had been established, and something hungry and ancient had noticed their presence. In the depths of space, far beyond the galaxy's edge, the Void Hunters began to move. The hunt for humanity had begun. The first attack came 3 months later, hitting the Outer Rim colonies without warning. Amanda learned about it while she was deep in another session with the artifact. Studying the defensive systems the architects had built into their technology, the ancient structure suddenly blazed with alarm signals, displaying star charts that showed expanding zones of darkness where Federation worlds used to be. What's happening? Activity from the artifact. Amanda pulled her hand away from the surface, her face pale. "They're here, the Void Hunters. They found us." The chamber erupted in movement as the Valdorian team scrambled to understand what their sensors were telling them. Commander Valdris activated his communication device, speaking rapidly in the clipped military language he used for emergencies. "Confirmed," he announced after a tense minute. "Long-range sensors detect massive distortions in the Kepler sector. 7 colonies have gone dark in the past 6 hours." "Gone dark?" Jake asked. "No communications, no life signs, no energy signatures?" "Of any kind," Valdris replied grimly. "It's as if they simply ceased to exist." Amanda felt sick to her stomach. The artifact had warned her this would happen, but she had hoped they would have more time to prepare. The Void Hunters moved faster than the architects had expected, learning from their ancient war to become even more efficient at destroying. "Life, we need to activate the other artifacts," she said urgently, "the ones on different worlds. The defense network won't work with just this one." "Other artifacts?" Dr. Nexus Prim stepped forward, his large eyes gleaming with interest. "You know the locations of additional sites?" Amanda nodded. Over the past months, the artifact had shown her the positions of 17 other structures scattered across Federation space. Each one was hidden, waiting for humans to find them and bring the ancient network back to life. "Impossible," Valdris said flatly. "We would have detected structures of this magnitude. Our surveys are thorough." "Your surveys look for things you understand," Amanda replied. "These artifacts are designed to hide from species that aren't ready for them." The truth was more complicated than that, but Amanda had learned to be careful about what she shared with the Valdorians. The artifacts didn't just hide from unready species, they actively avoided detection by races that would use their power for conquest rather than protection. Regardless, Valdris continued, mobilizing teams to 18 different worlds would require resources we don't have. The High Council would never approve such an expedition based on the word of a single human. Then maybe it's time to change who's making the decisions, Jake said quietly. Everyone turned to look at him. The engineer had been growing more outspoken over the past weeks, especially as it became clear that only humans could operate the architect technology. What exactly are you suggesting? Valdris asked, his voice dangerously calm. I'm suggesting that maybe the people who can actually use this stuff should be in charge of using it, Jake replied. Instead of standing around taking orders from folks who can't even turn it on, the tension in the chamber was thick enough to cut. Amanda could see the Valdorian guards shifting their positions, their hands moving closer to their weapons. Commander, Valdris's face showed the kind of cold anger that usually preceded violence. You forget yourself, human, he said softly. The Federation exists under Valdorian leadership because we have proven ourselves worthy of that responsibility. Your species is barely civilized? Barely civilized? Jake laughed harshly. Lady, we're the only ones here who can make ancient superweapons work. Maybe it's time to rethink your definition of civilized. Before Valdris could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the facility. Emergency lights bathed the chamber. In red and automated voices, announced incoming priority messages from Federation Command. Report. Valdris barked into his communicator. The response came in broken fragments. Fleet engagements, massive casualties, entire battle groups disappearing. Without trace, Void Hunters weren't just attacking individual colonies anymore. They were moving against major Federation strongholds, and nothing seemed able to stop them. How many ships have we lost? Valdris asked. Current estimates suggest 60% of the Third Fleet and 40% of the Second, came the reply. Admiral Korex requests immediate reinforcement, but available reserves are minimal. Amanda felt the artifact responding to her growing fear. The ancient structure was trying to comfort her, sharing memories of the First War when the architects had faced similar losses. But it also showed her something else. Images of humans working together, operating multiple artifacts in perfect coordination. I need to contact Earth, she said suddenly. Earth. Dr. Nexus Prime looked puzzled. Why would you want to speak to your homeworld at a time like this? Because there are humans there who can help. The artifacts need multiple operators. To reach full power, I can't do this alone. Out of the question, Valdris replied immediately. Earth's government has no authority in this matter. This is a Federation crisis, requiring Federation solutions. Your Federation solutions are getting people killed, Jake pointed out. Maybe it's time to try something different. The argument was interrupted by another alarm, this one coming directly from the artifact itself. Amanda rushed to place her hand on its surface, and immediately the chamber filled with urgent warnings. The Void Hunters had found 2 more artifact sites. They were systematically destroying the ancient network before humans could activate it. We're running out of time, Amanda said desperately. Every minute we wait, they destroy more of our defenses. Then tell me how to operate this device, Valdris demanded. Show me the interface procedures. Amanda looked at him sadly. It doesn't work that way. Yeah, artifacts aren't just machines. They're alive in a way. They choose their operators. Based on genetic patterns that go back millions of years, genetic patterns that supposedly favor humans, Dr. Nexus Prime said skeptically. Not supposedly. Actually, Amanda turned to face the assembled Valdorians. The architects built these artifacts for their descendants. Humans carry their genetic legacy. That's why the devices respond to us and not to you. Even if that were true, Valdris said through clenched teeth, it doesn't change the chain of command. The Federation operates under established protocols. Your protocols are going to get everyone killed, Jake said bluntly. Including your own people. As if to emphasize his point, another emergency message arrived. The hegemony worlds were under attack. The peaceful cetacean colonies had gone silent. Even the heavily defended Valdorian core systems were reporting strange energy signatures on their borders. Amanda felt something change in the artifact. The ancient consciousness was reaching a decision, preparing for actions that would alter the balance of power in the galaxy forever. "Commander Valdris," she said carefully, "I'm going to ask you one more time to contact Earth and the other human colonies. Let us activate the artifact network before it's too late. And I'm telling you one more time that humans do not give orders to Valdorians," he replied coldly. "This facility operates under my authority, and you've made your choice," Amanda said quietly. She placed both hands on the artifact and reached out with her mind. Not to the ancient structure in front of her, but to the other artifacts scattered across the galaxy. To her amazement, she felt them responding. 17 points of light awakened across Federation space, each one calling out to any human who might be near enough to hear. The awakening had begun, and this time no one could stop it. On distant worlds, human miners and engineers and scientists felt an irresistible pull toward hidden chambers they had never seen before. The architect legacy was calling its children home, and the real war was about to begin. The moment Amanda connected all the artifacts, everything changed. Across the galaxy, 17 human operators suddenly found themselves standing before ancient structures that hummed with impossible power. Most had never seen anything like it before, but they all felt the same irresistible call that had drawn their ancestors to the stars. On the mining world of New Texas, a young engineer named Bobby Chen pressed his hand against warm black stone and felt the entire history of the galaxy flow through his mind. On the research station orbiting Kepler 438, Dr. Lisa Martinez touched an artifact that had been hidden in plain sight for decades, disguised as a decorative wall. Each awakening sent ripples of energy across space, creating a network of power that the Void Hunters had thought was destroyed forever, but Commander Valdris was not going to give up without a fight. "Shut it down," he ordered, his voice filled with rage. All of it, immediately. Amanda kept her hands pressed against the artifact's surface, feeling the connections forming between distant worlds. "I can't shut it down. I wouldn't. People are dying out there. People are dying because you activated an unknown weapon system without authorization," Valdris snapped. "You've compromised Federation security?" "I've activated the only defense we have," Amanda replied firmly. Through the artifact, she could sense the other human operators learning to use their connections. Were faster than others, but all of them shared the same genetic heritage that made the ancient technology respond to their touch. Jake stepped between Amanda and the advancing Valdorian guards. "You want to stop her? You'll have to go through me first." "Gladly," Dr. Nexus Prim said, raising a weapon that glowed with deadly energy. "Humans have interfered with proper scientific procedure for the last time. The first shot never found its target. The artifact's defensive systems activated the moment hostile intent was detected, surrounding Amanda with a barrier of pure energy that deflected the beam harmlessly into the chamber wall. The Valdorian weapons couldn't penetrate the shield, but they kept firing anyway, their anger overcoming their scientific training. Through her connection with the network, Amanda felt the other operators facing similar situations. The Valdorian forces were trying to seize control of every artifact site, but the ancient defenses were too strong. More importantly, humans across the galaxy were responding to the call. Ships were changing course toward the artifact worlds. Military units were abandoning their Federation posts to protect the sites. The awakening was spreading faster than anyone could stop it. The Hegemony fleet just declared independence from Federation command, Melsoth announced, her multiple arms working frantically at her communication console. "They're moving to protect human settlements in their sector." "Possible," Valdris snarled. "The Hegemony species are loyal to the Federation." "The Hegemony species are smart enough to know which side is going to win," Jake corrected. "Right? Now, that's not looking like you folks." The truth was becoming clear to everyone in the chamber. The Federation was breaking apart as species chose sides in a conflict that was about more than just ancient artifacts. It was about who had the right to decide the future of the galaxy. Amanda felt something new flowing through the network. 17 human operators had learned to work together, their minds linking through the artifacts to create something greater than the sum of its parts. She could see through their eyes, feel through their senses, understand the galaxy in ways that no single person ever could. The Void Hunters are at the edge of the core systems, she announced, her voice echoing with power that hadn't been heard. In millions of years, they'll reach Earth in 6 hours. Then we evacuate, Valdris said. Gather what forces we can and retreat to the inner rim. No, Amanda's voice was calm but absolute. We fight. Fight with what? Dr. Nexus Prime demanded. Half the fleet is destroyed. The other half is scattered across 3 sectors. We have no weapons capable of harming these creatures. We have the artifacts, Amanda replied. We have the knowledge of the architects. We have something they never had, which is Amanda. Smiled, and for a moment her face looked like the ancient builders who had ruled the galaxy so long ago. We have the willingness to risk everything for people we've never met. The battle began an hour later, not in space, but in the dimension between spaces, where the Void Hunters lived. Amanda and the other operators reached across reality itself, using the artifact network to strike at enemies that existed only as hunger and malice. It was like fighting nightmares made real, but the humans pressed forward anyway. The Valdorians watched in amazement as their instruments detected energy levels that shouldn't exist. Space itself seemed to bend around the artifact sites as the ancient weapons came online. But more than that, they could see something changing in the humans themselves. Amanda's eyes began to glow with the same light that filled the artifacts. Her voice carried harmonics that spoke directly to the mind. The other operators were changing too, becoming something more than human, but not less. They were evolving into what the architects had always intended them to become. It's working. Jake breathed, watching the tactical displays. The attacks are stopping. Across the galaxy, Void Hunter assault forces found themselves facing resistance they couldn't understand. The humans weren't just fighting back, they were learning, adapting, growing stronger with each engagement. Where the architects had tried to defeat the invaders with pure technology, humans fought with something the ancient builders had never fully understood. They fought with hope. The final confrontation came when the Void Hunters tried to strike. Directly at Earth, Amanda felt them coming through the network. A wave of darkness that sought to consume humanity's homeworld. But she also felt something else. Every human in the galaxy, connected through the artifacts, standing together against the ancient threat. Now she whispered, and 17 operators reached across space and time to deliver a blow that shattered the Void Hunters. Dimensional anchor points. The invaders found themselves trapped in normal space, vulnerable for the first time in millions of years. The battle lasted 6 minutes. When it ended, the Void Hunters were not destroyed but transformed, their hunger replaced by curiosity about the strange species that had shown them a different way to exist. In the aftermath, as emergency crews worked to restore damaged systems and rescue survivors, the galaxy faced a new reality. Humans were no longer the junior partners in galactic civilization. They were its protectors, inheriting a responsibility that came with power beyond imagination. Commander. Aldris approached Amanda as she finally stepped away from the artifact. The Valdorian's face showed a mixture of respect and fear that she had never seen from his species before. What happens now? He asked quietly. Amanda looked around the chamber, seeing Jake grinning with exhaustion. Melsoth carefully documenting everything with her instruments. Even Kethvar, staring at the artifact with something like reverence. Now, we rebuild, she said simply. Not with humans in charge and everyone else taking orders. Together, the way the architects always intended. She placed her hand on the artifact one last time, feeling the vast network of knowledge and power that humanity had inherited. But more than that, she felt the connections between all the species in the galaxy, linked now by something stronger than law or tradition. They were linked by the understanding that survival meant working together, that sometimes the youngest species could teach the oldest ones what it truly meant to be alive. The age of human guardianship had begun. The galaxy would never be the same.